Good morning, South Africa. We are once again joined in this amazing day where we are going to be speaking diversity. My name is Kim Maruping and I am going to be your host for this morning. We are going to be speaking to an LGBTI representative where we're speaking diversity. I mean, Nelson Mandela said it. No one is going to be taking away from one from another. We are going to be embracing each other in this land of the living. We once again live this morning. We are on the LGBTI talk and we are joined by a person that is my favorite personally. I have met her in many occasions where she speaks about transformation in the African National Congress. And we are joined this morning by Comrade Steve Letsike. Comrade Steve, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing? I'm so happy and delighted to join you here.
I am much happier myself. I mean, you're looking good, and I can see that the vibrancy is there, and the flag behind you looks absolutely colorful. I'm dressed for the occasion. What do you think?
Thank you. It's always there, always ready to talk to you.
Yeah, great. Comrade Steve, I just wanted to give you an opportunity because you are serving in different desks of the African National Congress and you are a mover and a shaker and you are somebody that is pro-transformation and you're speaking diversity and how we can look after the minority groups and the things that they have to go through on a daily basis. Would you like to introduce yourself? I'm afraid that if I do it, I might take away from the spice that you have.
No, indeed. Thank you so much for having me here. I mean, as introduced there, but I do serve as a national convener of the Embrace Diversity Movement, which is a pro-ANC movement of queer persons within the ANC. These are members in good standing who identify as LGBTI persons within ANC in all spheres. So not everybody is just serving at national level. The movement has provincial task teams, we have regional task teams, and we've been organizing ourselves. And I think for the first time, ANC has seen visibility across the nation with this movement being active. But I'm also one of the people who really advance the establishment of the ANC Women's League LGBTI desk, which of course the Women's League is led by President Batabile, and of course the NEC entirely. But we are the ones that took, to the fund and establishment. And, one of the exciting things, it was in the Northern Cape when the LGBTI Desk Women's League was launched during the ANC birthday. And here we are talking here in the Northern Cape TV. So it's exciting time.
I was there personally. I saw you come in your beautiful colors, and Comrade Leader Batabile was also there, and it was such a glorious event. It was held at the Maibuye Multipurpose Center, and
Absolutely.
everybody was there in their beautiful colors, and we had
Yeah.
great performances and all of that. I was really excited for the launching of the desk, and I'm glad that
Yeah.
we can have this opportunity to speak to you this morning. What do you
Yeah.
think of inclusivity within the African National Congress? Do you think that we have included the LGBTI community enough?
Look, I think first let's talk about inclusivity within the African National Congress. It has always been the nature and the principle of the ANC, where ANC is inclusive and it's for everybody. ANC is still the non-sexist organization, non-racial and equal organization that we have in South Africa, but also in the region. I think it's in this nature where we come together to then say, how do we make sure that the very same principle we stand up to becomes a lived reality on a daily basis, where ANC will not find itself challenged by the nature of inequality. So we know that these are the principles of the organization. I think the challenge has been whether the people who lead the organization in various spheres have imparted enough knowledge with members on the grounds in a way that it becomes a principle that is owned by everybody, an ideology that is
Mm.
practiced by everybody and understood that these are the principles we uphold. I do think, we can do better as an organization. We can really strive to what we have always believed in, even in the past.
I'm so excited that you're even speaking about the fact that we do need to be more inclusive. And you are acknowledging the fact that there is a gap that still needs to be filled. And there is things, my earpiece just fell off. I just need to keep on doing these virtual things, technicalities that happened. So I
Yeah,
just, I'm so excited that you are acknowledging that there is a gap. We have
mm,
done
yeah,
to this extent, but we need to do more. What are the
yeah.
practical steps that you think we can take as an organization to make sure that the LGBTI community is fully included in the things that we
Yeah,
do?
yeah, I think, there's a body of work and history we have to acknowledge. We had in the past people like Simon Goli, who was in the treason trial. Simon stood up and said he is black and he's gay. I mean, this was during apartheid when they were arrested. He is black and he's gay, and that his struggles will not be separated. And I don't think we should actually ignore the intersections as individuals. And this is for everybody. We cannot ignore intersections. One can be black, woman, a person with disability, and even lesbian for that matter, or whatsoever. So it is that nature where we need to really acknowledge this history. And people like Simon Goli, people like Pubim Tetwa, people like Beverly Ditsi were amongst people who were organizing even within the ANC in the past. Whether some were allies, whether some were friends of the ANC, but whether some were even members of the ANC. And that's a history we need to even acknowledge. For that matter. Now, in this day and age where we can do better, the practicalities is that ANC must never be seen as an organization that does not really embrace. And this is why we are doing what we're doing now, to say
Mm,
embrace. We
mm,
want to have openly LGBTI persons serving in the ranks, serving in decision making of the organization, because LGBTI people constitute over 20% of the population in any community for that matter. So where do we start in making sure that we are inclusive, getting people on the desk, that desk of decision making? The decision making space really requires people who are capable. And amongst LGBTI people, we've got capacity, we've got expertise, we've got competency to also be
mm,
part of the decision makers, to influence policies of the organization, but also not to shy away from leadership that must be provided within society. We've said ANC will be the lead, in fact, is the leader of the community and society. And it then
mm,
requires us to make sure that the leadership of the society is inclusive, is diverse, but it's also showing transformation that is not casted within just the norms of patriarchy or within the ranks of just exclusivity for that matter. So it's an exemplary manner of which we need to lead everywhere in the provinces, in the local elections that are coming up. I mean, ANC Women's League have been for the last couple of weeks drawing on potential candidates of wards who will potentially serve as councillors. We've seen across the province. In Northern Cape, you have 3 candidates
yeah.
that are out and who are identifying as gay, as lesbian, as trans, and that's exciting to see that those who are standing up are able to take up the responsibility and represent their communities. So it's what we want to be seeing everywhere else happening in Western Cape, in Gauteng, everywhere we've seen candidates of LGBTI who are capable, who are educated, but also who are ready to serve their communities.
I love the fact that you are speaking about an issue where history has to be rewritten. I mean, we have spoken about a time where certain things have been distorted, where certain histories have been distorted, and some stories were not told enough in order for us to be able to understand what transpired. And you're speaking about the LGBTI community being actively involved even during the apartheid era. It's not something that it's new. It's not coming up only now. It has been there. It was just not embraced enough. That's why we're saying we are embracing diversity, and we are embracing the fact that the LGBTI community has taken part in the struggle. They have been there. They have stood up and they have come out and said, we want to belong, and we're also part of this community. So I'd like to understand, according to you, you're speaking positions, you're speaking how you need to have qualification, you're speaking how you need to be excellent at the work that you're doing. I know a lot of LGBTI people who are personal friends who are very educated, who have taken time to go and learn the skills and to come back and implement in their communities. These are some of the people that might be misunderstood. And I'm putting this under an inverted commas because most of the time they are in actual fact misunderstood. But what they want to do is just to belong. In which positions would you like to see the LGBTI community serving in? They are now, obviously, we have counselors, like you said, in the Northern Cape as well, and throughout the country that have contesting for these upcoming elections. Where do you want to see the LGBTI community in a nutshell?
Well, we want to see them everywhere. They have capacity to become mayors. They have capacity to become councillors, but they also have capacity to be PR councillors. I mean, right now we're talking local elections, right? But one of the biggest issues, it's not only just leadership within the ranks of government, but it's also leadership within the ANC itself. You know, whether they are branch secretaries, branch chairpersons, and so forth. I think one of the things is not that people must be in those leadership positions because they identify as gay or lesbian or transgender. They have to do the work. They have to qualify like everybody else. They have to mobilize like everybody else. But they also have to organize like everybody else. So for me, the capacity goes hand in hand with the hard work that we do for the ANC. And that for me is instrumental. So the popularity doesn't come with one being LGBTI. And we know LGBTI people can be popular just because, you know, they identify different, right? So we know that.
Yes.
But for me, the most important thing is the hard work of one, addressing developmental agenda, community issues, and really advocating for what the communities are calling for, and that they have mandated you to do. One of the things that we also have to acknowledge is the fact that we have LGBTI who are standing up and who are identified. Of course, people are out and they are proud of who they are. That's why people celebrate Pride, because the dominant people in society, which we assume is heterosexual, have always been silent when oppression that is experienced by LGBTI people, you know, have been experienced. So it is why we have LGBTI people who are out, and I'm out, and I'm proud as a lesbian woman myself, and it's because I had to be who I am, and I had to come out and speak about my identity that cannot be separated from who I am as a Black woman, for that matter. And these are things that Simon Colley was talking about. Because of the silence, and that has wrought injustice, we happen to have to come out and be ourselves anywhere and everywhere. So they have to occupy those leadership positions everywhere.
I think the time has come now where we have, as a community, as a country, as a people, have to acknowledge that the LGBTI community is here, and they're here to stay. And they are going to make their mark in this province, in this country, and in this world, to say that we too belong. We have pride, we have diversified, and we are therefore proud of who and what we are. So if you don't want to accommodate us, you need to move out of the country or move out of the world. So after this ad break, we will be continuing, and we're taking it back with Comrade Steve. We will be back with LGBTI Talk with me, Kim Maruping, after this ad break. are back with the LGBTIQ talk with me, Kim Maruping. I am joined by Comrade Steve, and Comrade Steve is a very dynamic woman who says that I am proud and I have gone out, and we are going to be continuing to have this conversation. Comrade Steve, I am at a university, obviously I'm studying, and it's my final year. Yay! Couple of weeks to go, then we're graduating. I mean, here at the African National Congress, we're saying that education must be fashionable at whatever age. You cannot be too old to be learning.
Yes,
Are you
yes.
seeing LGBTI community people, people that identify as LGBTQI? When are you going to start maybe a campaign where we are encouraging them from a young age to say that, listen here, let's get ourselves into those universities and let's break those barriers as well?
I think maybe before we even talk about campaigning and encouraging LGBTI persons, we have to deal with the substance of the challenge. One of the things that we've done and we've seen, there's research that was released a few years ago, that 74% of LGBTI people are discriminated while they are in school. And what does that mean? The self-esteem, the whole optimism or even confidence get killed when people are in school. And this follows people to adulthood. Similarly to being rejected at home for being gay or lesbian, the conversion practices, people are forced into therapy so that they change. We have a very big issue, with LGBTI people who are oppressed, who are marginalized when they are young, that by the time actually they grow up, they actually would have changed, their livelihood would have been challenged because of that. So I think we need to actually deal with diversity, rights, and inclusion education at school, including the implementation of comprehensive sexuality education, because it will mean that their peers, the teachers at school, will not violate their rights as children. And I think that for me, it's important, because if somebody has been oppressed and marginalized, that follows them to adulthood. That may lead them to substance use and abuse, and that's what we are seeing in the communities. That means that people will not drop out of school, and that's what we are also seeing amongst LGBTI people. And these are social ailments that we need to deal with. And of course, those who are resilient and who have got a little bit of substance base of support are more likely to make it. They have a huge percentage of making it. And those who are not oppressed will have a very huge success of making it in their life. So I think we need to deal with that substance of what happens during the teenagehood for LGBTI children. Now, for others is that, how do we encourage? And I like what you're saying. Even in difficulties, how do we create opportunities for LGBTI people? We have to be intentional, because we know this is a community that has been marginalized. Similarly, every community that has been marginalized, that means we are intentional. Women have been marginalized. That's why in 1956, they marched claiming their equality. That people with disability have been marginalized. That's why we are intentional, and we've got policies that does that. But similarly with LGBTI community, we have to be intentional to actually target reaching out to them, target going to provide services, but similarly targeting them to saying, here are educational opportunities for young LGBTI people. Come get educated so that you may lead a better livelihood in the future. We know this continues even in the workspace. You have a gay person, you have a transgender person, who may not have the same opportunities as the other heterosexual person or cisgender person for that matter. So these are some of the things we need to unlock intentionally. But I like the idea of a campaign. I know I've started with quite unemployed young people that I even committed myself to taking them, go finish your matric. And I've sponsored few of them to go finish their matric, because that's where it starts before they even get to the opportunities of universities. But that one, I will even take you up on it, that we start that campaign very quick.
Absolutely. I am one to speak for any voice that is voiceless. I mean, at my space at the university, at Soplike University, we do make sure that the LGBTI community is included in pageants. They are talented. They have this pizzazz in them, this thing, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
how to
yeah,
even explain the thing, but you know what I'm talking about. And I
yeah,
have that thing
yeah.
also. So we gel very nicely together. But most importantly, they're intelligent. And if we can go on a campaign to say to them, you need to embrace yourself, you need to know who you are, and you need to accept who you are, then we are at a point where we are moving. We are going to take 2 questions from the audience. And the first question says, how do we deal with coming out? ESP to Black people, parents, where the LGBTI topic is generally taboo.
Well, I think first, coming out, one has to come out to themselves. There's no pressure whatsoever to be coming out to anybody else. The first part is yourself, it's you knowing yourself, understanding yourself, because often, and even in the past, sexuality was never part of the lessons that we've undergone. Those who are fortunate now are young people in school, and it's still a difficulty to implement comprehensive sexuality education. But coming out is to yourself. And then if you have people around you who you know, who you trust, who also would embrace you for who you are, you are able to share that part of yourself with them. And then to parents, because parents are also an integral part of our lives, and those who are fortunate to still lead lives with having parents around them, it's quite important. I was often by the age of 7 already. So both parents died that same year. But what is key, and I grew up with my grandparents, and let me tell you a story. My grandmother used to say, "Oh no, you're not going to be lesbian in my house." But I had an aunt. My aunt said to my grandma, "You're gonna love your granddaughter as your granddaughter. Who is she with has nothing to do with you." And I think it's important, and we have to impart knowledge that me being lesbian and anybody else being gay or trans has nothing to do with you as a parent or as a guardian. It is about them. Your role as a parent is to love your child for who they are and as your child, and that's the most important thing. And we know the schooling of our parents or guardians or even grandparents have been in a very religious fundamental that you only have a kind of a nuclear kind of type of families setups, and it became a challenge in how we educate diversity and sexuality. So coming out is for you. And if you have the power and strength to come out to everybody else, why not? Because you don't even have to be stuck anywhere else. I did not have to come out because the closet was never meant for me, and others, it's not meant for anybody else. So let's get out of the what we call the closet for that matter. But a lot of people don't even regard a closet as a closet. It's coming out and knowing and understanding yourself and giving pride to yourself.
I mean, I love that. You were never in the closet. The closet
Yeah,
is an individual thing. You know, if
yeah,
you feel that you're in the closet is for you and not necessarily the closet is
yeah.
for everybody else. And closets could mean different things to different
It
people. It
can,
doesn't have to be
absolutely.
something tangible. It could be something right here. It could be chains that are inside
Yeah,
you or in
yeah,
your brain or in your mind or in your heart. So, I mean, the closet is something huge. And this is a conversation that we should be having. What is it? That we call being inside the closet. And the second question that you have from the audience, obviously the community brings with it a kind of flair and pizzazz. What do you think the kind of dynamic can do to the organization? The flair and the pizzazz. I just spoke about flair and pizzazz now. So, I mean, obviously, the audience members are also, speaking about the flair and the pizzazz that the
mm.
LGBTI community have. What can it bring to the community?
Look, I think one of the most important thing about the flair and possess, I think we have to embrace the nature of which we all operate in. We've got Amayanga, the young Lawians who think, and they roar, and even LGBTI people are part of it. They roar in flair. We've got women's league and women's structures, and we are not a homogeneous group. But similarly, ANC is not a homogeneous group. We cannot actually wear blinders or oogklaps for that matter to think that we will look like the same. We will all speak from and sing from the ANC hymn and the Constitution, and will uphold it even in that very same flair. Some of us are up and out in a particular manner, and maybe that's a good thing for the organization because it's an innovative way of looking at things. But it does not change the duty that the ANC has towards society. You will lead society in that way. You will lead society in the same principles of equality, of freedoms, but as well as leading society for change and livelihood of people. So seeing how the era changes and how we use different innovation, different initiations, it's what it is, and that's the nature of it. Unless if at all one had an ideology of how the ANC must operate and look and feel, even in 2021, that may be a wrongful ideology for that matter. An ideology is the principle we all serve together, but a kind of look and feel is possibly what we need, and society looks and feel like it. We use the fourth industrial revolution now. In the past, there was no technology like this, so which meant the ANC has transitioned. And you and I can even speak without seeing each other in a long time, right? So I guess one of the things for me is about the culture of which we operate in, to actually be inclusive for young people, for LGBTI people, for women, for men, everybody in society. And if we can actually deal with the agenda of today in a manner that is inclusive without losing the principle of inclusion of everybody, we will still win as society. And South Africa will lead in this way, in this manner. Just think about it. ANC with flair, ANC with this very same pride. You've got LGBTI vote. You've got the vote of LGBTI families. You've got the vote of LGBTI friends. Maybe it's about time that we go in flair in the ANC.
I love the fact that you're saying we've got the LGBTIQ vote, we've got the LGBTI families to vote, because like you said, family and socialization plays a huge role on how we turn out in society. And as soon as we get to be accepted by our own families and by our own societies, our flares just keep on flaring out. The colors just keep on coming out. We become even more beautiful because we know that we are accepted. One more question. They don't want to leave you alone. The audience really would like to engage with you. As a member of the LGBTI community, what are the kinds of oppression you experience? Also, take into consideration when someone identifies as a Black transgender or lesbian woman. These are questions that most of the people have. People do not understand how to approach the LGBTI. We don't know what to really say. And what would you tell this audience member that is asking this question?
No, I mean, absolutely. It's a very important question. Let's take, for instance, an example of introduction. A lot of people, I've got my hair cut, I'm a bit masculine myself. I don't wear a skirt. So a lot of people, and I even go by the name of Steve, but I don't identify as a woman. And I don't even identify as a man, right? And I don't even use the pronoun he or him. So a lot of people will assume this might possibly want to be a man or is a man or whatsoever. And I think these are the first mistakes that a lot of LGBTI people experience from the heterosexual community. Now, one thing that could be useful is that when we introduce ourselves and I say, I'm Steve and my pronoun is she and her. And this way, I will not be misgendered or degendered for that matter. And that's the basic one. So imagine 12% of LGBTI people in South Africa still gets rejected in healthcare settings. And people feared stigma and discrimination. And you've got a large proportion, just the last 4 months, we've had over 20 murders of LGBTI people across the country.
Sure.
And we've had over 12 cases of sexual violence and assault. And this is just cases that have made it to the public media discourse. And I think for me, if we talk about what are some of the discrimination or oppression that LGBTI go through daily, just like women who, when they walk down the road, people start whistling, people start calling them name, people say, hey, you are dressed nicely, all of those things. These are mockery things that happens daily, even to LGBTI people, that people are called Estabani, Trasi, all of these names that people go through. And it's stigma, it's discrimination, it's insult, it's assault, it's abuse that must never be tolerated in society. Now, it also goes to the systematic discrimination in the workplace. There's a case that we are observing even there in the Northern Cape of a colleague, of a comrade who in their workplace have been discriminated because of how they look and so forth. So these are things that we need to be challenging, because it's an identity, and others it's sexual orientation, some it's expression. And if we do not actually understand what identity, expression, and sexual orientation is, because sexual orientation does not determine your own gender, expression, or even identity for that matter. Take an example of Caster Semenya. Caster has been put on the international stage of oppression because of their own sex characteristic, her hormonal level, and how she's actually now been subjected to take medication so that she can suppress her natural hormones or chromosomes for that matter. And I think it's unethical. It's unethical. If our own
100%.
constitution says no one should be discriminated on the basis of sex, gender, sexual orientation, and all the other grounds, it means exactly that. We cannot think that people's sex must just be female, male, and don't think about intersex. People's gender must just be a cis hetero woman or a cis hetero man, and you don't think transgender or gender non-conforming, or people's sexual orientation, what we call heterosexual, and don't think about being gay, lesbian, or even being bisexual, or even pansexual for that matter. So it means we need to break down the barriers of oppressive language, oppressive uneducation that we have not been exposed to, and actually embrace one another in order to respect each other. We have a long way, and our understanding as South Africans, and this is our history, we have a long history of prejudice and oppression. And in fact, South Africa should be leading in a non-discriminative and equal society because of our history. We don't want to go back there. And we must never be the ones that perpetuate that very same harm that we have experienced in different ways as being Black and being a woman for that matter. So society must never take us back to marginalization and oppression.
You have said a mouthful. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, even myself, I'm thinking that society really needs to transform. We need to start embracing each other. We need to start looking the problem in the eye and saying to it, listen here, we're all born to be living in space together. We cannot be judging each other and saying this one is a little bit better than the other one. That's a misconception. That is something that we should strongly speak against and stand against. It has been absolutely amazing talking to you, Comrade Steve. I mean, you are radiant, you are passionate about this issue of, the LGBTI community being included in these spaces. It is about time that we take what rightfully belongs to us. South Africa belongs to all the people that live in it. And thank you so much for availing yourself and your time to being with us here this morning. I have learned a lot. I don't think that this conversation is over. I do
No.
think, however, that we should create more platforms where we can
Yeah.
educate, where we can tell people what it is that the LGBTI community really is about, where people can see that you're not just anybody. You born different in your own right, like everybody else is born different. Our fingerprints are not the same. So everybody else in the world cannot be the same. We need
Yeah.
to embrace diversity and we need to embrace who and what we are. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Comrade Steve. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been an absolutely amazing time with Comrade Steve, where we have to speak about the inclusivity of the LGBTI community in the African National Congress. The African National Congress is an organization that is pro-diversity, that is pro-inclusivity, that is pro-transformation. So we will continue to have these conversations where we shatter the myths and speak to people in the LGBTI community to say to them, you too belong. And we cannot wait for the 1st of November, where we are going to go out in our full force and go out there and vote for the African National Congress, the only organization that is pro LGBTI, that is pro diversity, like I said, that is going to be going out there and changing the lives of the people. So do not stay at home and not go and vote. If you are an eligible voter, go to the polls on the 1st of November and vote for the organization that matters. My name is Kim Maruping, and I'll be seeing you again during this week, where we will continue the conversation with the LGBTI community. Adios.